The homework still smelled like pencil shavings. That was the detail Ava Morales could not stop thinking about as she stood behind the chapel doors of Whitmore Academy, listening to wealthy families mourn a boy who had passed her a math worksheet through the old music room vent less than 12 hours ago. Julian Whitmore was dead. That was what the school announcement said. That was what the black ribbon above his portrait said, hanging over white lilies and polished candles at the front of the chapel. But dead boys did not sharpen pencils. Dead boys did not solve fractions in the margins. Dead boys did not write Ava's name on page 12, then cross it out so hard the paper almost tore. Ava looked down at the notebook. It was warm from being held too tightly. On the cover, Julian had drawn the same crooked star he always drew when he was nervous. Her father had told her not to go inside. People like them did not interrupt memorials. They cleaned after them. They carried out wilted flowers. They emptied trash before donors noticed. But Ava had heard Julian's voice through the vent the night before. The words had been broken by the vent, too faint to prove anything. Just one cracked whisper from behind the locked practice rooms. "Ava, don't give it to my uncle." Now Victor Whitmore stood beside Julian's father in a perfect black suit, speaking softly about loss, strength, and family duty. Ava pushed the chapel doors open. Every face turned. She walked past the flowers, past the cameras, past the people who had never learned her name. Then she placed the notebook in front of Ethan Whitmore and said the sentence that silenced the chapel. "Your son gave me this last night." Then Ava looked at Victor, and he told me not to give it to his uncle. Ethan Whitmore did not look at Victor first. He looked at the notebook. For 4 days, everyone had handed him objects that were supposed to help him accept his son's death. A framed photograph, a folded blazer, a wooden box containing Julian's watch, his student ID, and the inhaler found near the trail. Every object had felt cold. This notebook did not. It sat on the memorial table between white lilies and a silver candle, its cover bent at one corner, its pages swollen from Ava's grip. On the front, under Julian's name, was a crooked star drawn in blue pencil. Ethan knew that star. Julian drew it on napkins when he was anxious, on test papers when he wanted Ethan to notice he had tried. Once, years ago, on the back of a birthday card he had never given his mother because he thought it looked childish. Victor stepped forward before Ethan could touch it. "Ethan," he said quietly, "this is a child. She doesn't understand what she's doing." Ava's cheeks burned, but she did not move. "She understands enough to interrupt a memorial," Headmistress Margaret Vale said from the second row. Her voice was soft, controlled, trained for donors. "Mr. Whitmore, I am so sorry. Security will handle this." A guard reached for the notebook. Ava pulled it back. "No," she said. Several people gasped, as if refusing a guard was worse than holding proof that a dead boy might not be dead. From the side aisle, Ava's father appeared in his grey maintenance uniform, his face drained of color. Tomas Morales still held a dust cloth. He looked at Ava, then at the chapel full of parents whose names covered school plaques. "Ava," he whispered, "please." She heard what he could not say. "Please do not make me lose this job. Please do not make them look at us. Please do not be wrong." Victor turned toward Tomas with practiced sympathy. "Mr. Morales, I'm sure this is a terrible misunderstanding. Grief affects children in unpredictable ways, especially children who spend too much time around places they do not belong." Ethan finally lifted his eyes. "Places they do not belong," he repeated. Victor's expression did not change. "I only mean she may have overheard things, seen old assignments, taken something without understanding it." "I didn't take it," Ava said. "He gave it to me." A murmur moved through the chapel. Ethan held out his hand. "May I see it?" Ava hesitated. The man in front of her did not look like the photographs on the school website. In those, Ethan Whitmore stood beside scholarship banners, clean and certain, one hand on Julian's shoulder, as if fatherhood could be posed. This man looked as if he had not slept since his son was gone. Ava placed the notebook in his hand. Ethan opened it carefully. The first pages were ordinary enough. Fractions, decimal conversions, a half-finished word problem about train schedules. Julian's handwriting leaned slightly left, small and tense. Then Ethan reached page 12. Ava saw the moment he noticed her name, Ava, crossed out. The letters had been cut through with the pencil again and again until the page nearly tore. Ethan's thumb stopped on the mark. Victor glanced at the page and exhaled, almost gently. "Julian mentioned this girl before. She helped clean the classrooms, didn't she? It is possible she became attached. Children sometimes imagine friendships more intensely than they are." Ava's throat tightened. Julian had not imagined anything. He had left her math problems in the library return bin because he knew she solved them faster than he did. He had taught her to count beats in sheet music by tapping the steam pipe behind practice room 7. He had once given her half a sandwich and pretended he did not see her save it for home, but none of that sounded like evidence. Ethan turned another page. At the bottom of the last worksheet, beneath 3 wrong fractions, 5 words were written smaller than the rest. Dad can't sign. Ethan stared at the sentence. The chapel noise thinned around him, like every whisper had moved behind glass. Victor's hand settled on Ethan's shoulder. "Brother," he said, low enough that only those nearby could hear, "this is exactly why we needed to keep today private." Ethan did not answer. He was looking at the word dad. Julian never used that word in schoolwork, not in emails, not since Ethan had started missing dinners and calling himself your father in apology notes left beside closed bedroom doors. Ava watched Ethan's fingers tighten around the notebook. Then, behind the chapel wall, beneath the final note of the choir organ came a sound. 3 taps, a pause, 1 more tap. Ava turned toward the old music wing. So did Ethan. Ethan was the first adult who moved toward the sound. That mattered to Ava. For one breath, only one, she thought he might run straight through the side door, down the narrow hall behind the chapel, and into the old music wing where Julian's voice had come through the vent the night before. But Victor caught his arm. "Ethan," he said, "you heard pipes." The headmistress was already standing. "The music wing has been closed since Monday. There is no one there." Ava almost laughed, but it came out as a dry sound in her throat. Monday. That was the day after Julian disappeared. Ethan looked from the wall to the notebook, then to Ava. "How did you know to turn when you heard that?" Ava felt every adult face waiting for her to fail. "Because Julian tapped like that," she said. 3. Pause. 1. Victor's mouth tightened. "Many children tap. Not like that." Ethan stepped closer. "What does it mean?" Ava looked down at her father. Tomas gave the smallest shake of his head, not because he did not believe her, but because believing her would cost more than either of them could pay. She answered, "Anyway, it means listen." A whisper moved through the first rows. Victor's hand still rested on Ethan's sleeve, but Ethan pulled free this time. "Explain," he said. Ava swallowed. She wanted to say the simple version first. Julian was alive, she had heard him, and grown-ups were wasting time. But grown-ups did not believe simple things from children like her. They wanted dates, doors, reasons, names. They wanted the story to sound neat before they would risk their comfort on it. So Ava tried to build it slowly. "Julian didn't like asking teachers for help," she said. "He said they always acted surprised when he didn't understand something. Like rich kids were supposed to come with better brains." A few parents shifted in their seats. Ethan looked down. Ava continued, quieter now. "He left worksheets where my dad and I cleaned. At first I thought he forgot them. Then he started circling the problems he wanted me to try." "Why you?" Ethan asked. "Because I didn't laugh," Ava said. The answer seemed to hurt him more than an accusation would have. She did not tell them everything at once. Some memories felt too small for the chapel. Julian sitting on the stone steps behind the library, pretending he had come there for quiet, when really he was waiting for her father to unlock the supply closet. Julian sliding torn workbook pages into the return bin because he said math was less embarrassing when no one watched him get it wrong. Julian tapping on the steam pipe behind practice room 7, teaching her how to count rhythm because he hated playing piano in front of teachers who listened for mistakes instead of music. 3 taps, a pause, 1 more. Listen. "He used it when he wanted me to stop talking," Ava said. "Or when a teacher was coming, or when he heard someone in the hall." Ethan's face changed in a way Ava could not name. "You knew my son," he said. Victor answered before she could. "She knew of him. That is different." Ava looked at him then. Really looked. Victor Whitmore had not raised his voice once. He did not need to. His calm made other people calmer around him, as if fear were a problem he had already solved. But when Ava looked at the notebook in Ethan's hands, then back at Victor, she saw something small pass through his eyes. It was calculation, not grief. Headmistress Vale moved down the aisle. "Mr. Whitmore, I strongly recommend we continue this conversation somewhere private. This child is distressed. So is her father." "My father didn't do anything," Ava said. "No one said he did," Victor replied gently, but his eyes moved toward Tomas's uniform. Tomas lowered his head. Ethan noticed. "Mr. Morales," he said, "no one is removing you from this building because your daughter spoke." The sentence landed harder than Ava expected. Her father looked up, stunned, as if kindness from power was something that had to be checked for traps. Victor's expression cooled by 1 degree. "Ethan, this is not the time to make promises." "No," Ethan said. "It is exactly the time." Ava saw the rich parents become uncertain about which powerful man they were supposed to obey. Ethan turned the notebook toward her. "Show me where he gave this to you." "Not here," Headmistress Vale said quickly. Ethan looked at her. She folded her hands. "The old wing is sealed for safety. Electrical issues, loose ceiling panels. It would be irresponsible to let a grieving parent and a minor child wander into a restricted area because of a noise in the wall." "It wasn't just a noise," Ava said. Victor gave her a sad smile. "Ava, grief makes patterns where there are none." "I'm not grieving him," she said before she could stop herself. The chapel seemed to lean toward her. Ava's cheeks heated again, but she kept going. "Not like you. I mean, I am, but I didn't know him in front of people. I knew him after, when everyone left, when he could stop being Julian Whitmore." Ethan's grip tightened around the notebook. "He did not like that name?" he asked. "He said it sounded like a hallway," Ava said. "Long and expensive and empty." No one spoke. This time, Ethan did not look wounded by the sentence. He looked as if someone had opened a door inside him and shown him a room he should have known was there. Ava wished she had not said it. Then she remembered Julian's whisper, "Don't give it to my uncle." Ethan turned to the headmistress. "Unlock the music wing. I can't authorize that during an event." "Then end the event." Victor stepped between them, still careful, still low. "You are letting a frightened child pull you apart in public." Ethan looked at his brother. "My son may have written to me after he was declared dead. Public is no longer my first concern." A guard spoke into his radio near the rear doors. Headmistress Vale heard the crackle and glanced back too quickly. Ava saw it. So did Ethan. "What was that?" he asked. "Standard security," Vale said. But Ava was already looking at the notebook again. The 3 wrong fractions at the bottom of the page had bothered her since dawn. Julian was bad at speed tests, but he was not bad at those. He had made them wrong on purpose. She reached for the notebook, then stopped, afraid Ethan would think she was taking it back. "May I?" she asked. Ethan handed it to her. Ava knelt on the chapel step, smoothed the page against the wood, and studied the answers beneath Dad can't sign. 9/12, 1/7, 2/7. Her pulse kicked. Julian hated reducing fractions. He always forgot until Ava tapped twice on the table. "Reducit." 9/12 became 3/4. 1/7 stayed 1/7. 2/7 stayed 2/7. 3, 4, 1, 7. Ava looked toward the side wall again. Practice room 7 was on the 4th floor of the old music wing, and the service stair beside it had 3 doors. The service stair did not look like it belonged to Whitmore Academy. Everything on the public side of the school had been polished until it reflected money back at itself. Marble floors, brass railings, portraits of boys who had become senators, judges, donors, names on buildings. Behind the chapel wall, the stairwell was narrow, grey, and warm from old pipes. Ava had always preferred this part of the school. It did not pretend. Headmistress Vale walked ahead with a ring of keys in one hand and a phone in the other. Victor followed beside Ethan, close enough to speak without raising his voice. Tomas came last, because workers learned to make themselves last before anyone told them to. A guard blocked the stairwell door until Ethan looked at him. "Open it," Ethan said. The guard glanced at Vale. Ethan noticed that too. "Do you work for the school?" he asked. "Or for the truth?" The guard's face reddened. He stepped aside. Ava should have felt safer. She didn't. The closer they got to the old music wing, the more she felt the night before pressing against her ribs. The whisper through the vent, the scratch of paper against tile, the blue pencil rolling under the door as if someone had pushed it with the last strength they had. On the first landing, Victor slowed his pace. "Ethan, think carefully," he said. "If reporters see you chasing sounds through a closed wing, this becomes a spectacle. Julian deserves dignity." Ethan did not stop. Julian deserved a father who asked more questions before accepting a report. Victor's mouth pressed into a line. Ava heard the hit land, even if Ethan did not look back to see it. At the next turn, the hallway narrowed so sharply that Ethan had to angle his shoulders to pass an old cart of sheet music. Ava saw his shoes stop beside the dented metal frame. For a man who owned buildings taller than the chapel tower, he looked strange here, trapped in the service path his money had never taught him to notice. Julian had known this path. That was another thing adults would not understand. Rich children were not supposed to know backstairs, boiler smells, or which pipes hissed before the heat came on, but Julian had learned them because no one followed him there. No tutors, no reporters, no uncle asking whether he had practiced his signature. At the third landing, she stopped. 3 doors faced the narrow hall. One led to the balcony above the chapel organ, one to a storage room where old music stands were stacked like metal skeletons, one to the corridor that climbed again toward the 4th-floor practice rooms. Ava looked at the notebook in Ethan's hand. 3, 4, 1, 7. 3 doors, 4th floor, 1 warning. Room 7. It's this one, she said. Headmistress Vale's keys stopped moving. That corridor is not safe. You said the music wing was closed, Ethan said. Not unsafe enough to remove the chairs from the memorial balcony. Vale's face held. Ava respected that, in a frightened way. The headmistress did not panic like people in stories. She rearranged the truth until it stood where she wanted it. The upper practice hall is under review, Vale said. There was water damage. Tomas lifted his head before he could stop himself. No, ma'am. Water damage was 2nd floor, west wall. Every adult looked at him. He lowered his eyes again. Ava wanted to reach back and hold his sleeve, but if she did, he might leave for her sake. Ethan turned to Tomas. You repaired it? I patched the plaster, Tomas said carefully. Last month. And the 4th floor? Tomas looked at Vale. Victor stepped in. A maintenance worker is not responsible for remembering every hallway in a school this old. He remembers the ones he fixed, Ava said. Her father's face warned her to stop. She did not, because Julian had not stopped. That thought came so sharply it steadied her. Before the retreat, Julian had changed. At first, Ava thought he was only more tired than usual. He forgot his lunch twice. He flinched when a phone buzzed behind him. He stopped leaving worksheets in the library bin and started folding them into smaller squares, tucking them behind the loose panel under the steam pipe. One afternoon, 3 days before the accident, he had asked her a question without looking at her. If someone needs your signature, but you don't want to give it, can they still take it? Ava had laughed then, because it sounded like one of his rich people problems. Not unless they steal your hand, she had said. Julian had not laughed. Now the memory made her stomach turn. Ethan was watching her. What did you remember? Ava told him. Not all of it. Not the part where Julian's hands had been shaking. Not the part where he had said his uncle knew how to make adults believe paper over people. She was not ready to say that with Victor breathing behind them. But she said enough. He asked about signatures, Ava said. Before the retreat. Victor looked almost bored. Children hear adults discuss estate planning. They misunderstand. Did he mention me? Ethan asked. Ava shook her head, then stopped. He said someone wanted him to practice writing his full name, over and over. He said it was stupid because everyone already knew his name. Ethan's eyes moved to Victor. Victor sighed. Julian was heir to a complicated trust. There were educational documents, school forms, medical releases. You know this. I know what I signed, Ethan said. I don't know what my son was asked to sign. The words left a mark in the stairwell. Headmistress Vale unlocked the 3rd door. The corridor beyond smelled of dust and varnish. Half the overhead lights were dead. The others flickered once, then steadied, revealing framed recital posters, torn soundproofing panels, and a row of practice rooms with brass numbers on the doors. Ava walked faster before fear could catch up. Room 7 was at the end. Its door had a new padlock. Everything around it was old. The hinges were spotted. The wood had scratches near the bottom from years of instrument cases bumping against it. But the padlock was bright, silver, and wrong. Ethan touched it. When was this installed? Vale answered too quickly. After the closure. Who ordered it? I would need to check facilities. Tomas spoke again, softer this time. That lock isn't from our supply room. Victor turned. Mr. Morales, I believe your daughter has already placed you in enough difficulty. Tomas went still. Ava stepped in front of him without thinking. Victor's eyes lowered to her, almost kind, and there it was again. It was measurement, not anger, as if he were deciding how much pressure a poor girl could take before she broke. Ethan saw it. Speak to her father like that again, Ethan said, and this stops being a family matter. Victor's smile faded. A sound came from inside room 7. This time, it was a scrape. Small, weak, then gone. Ava put both hands on the door. Julian? No answer. Vale reached for her. Do not touch. Ethan caught the headmistress's wrist before she reached Ava. He did not grip hard. He only stopped her. Unlock it. I don't have that key. No one moved. The lie was too clean. Ava crouched. At the bottom of the door, caught between the threshold and the warped wood, was a strip of paper no wider than her finger. She pulled it free carefully. It was not a message. It was the torn corner from the notebook. On it, Julian had drawn a crooked star. Inside the star were 4 tiny letters, RVR. Below them, almost too small to read, was one more line. If I miss Tuesday, check the metronome. Ava did not know why the word Tuesday made the corridor feel colder. It was only a day. But Julian had written it like a deadline. If I miss Tuesday, check the metronome. Ethan read the line twice. The second time, his voice changed on the word miss, as if he could hear all the things his son had not been able to say. Where is it? He asked. Ava looked at the locked door of practice room 7. Inside. Headmistress Vale slid the ring of keys into her jacket pocket. Mr. Whitmore, I need to be very clear. This has gone beyond a school matter. If you force entry into a restricted room during an active event, you may compromise whatever investigation you believe you are helping. Victor nodded slowly, as though the headmistress had said something painful but necessary. She is right. If there is evidence, we need procedure. Procedure declared my son dead, Ethan said. No one answered. Tomas cleared his throat. There's another way to see him. Vale turned sharply. Ava knew that tone before the words came. It was the sound adults used when a worker had forgotten to stay useful and quiet. What way? Ethan asked. Tomas looked at the padlock, then at the wall beside room 7. Practice rooms 6 and 7 share an old service vent. It was for heat before they updated the system. You can't fit through it, but you can see part of the piano room if the cover comes loose. The cover does not come loose, Vale said. Tomas did not look at her. It did last month. Victor gave a soft laugh. Mr. Morales, are you admitting to leaving a safety hazard in a student area? Tomas's mouth closed. Ava felt anger rise so fast it nearly made her dizzy. Victor could turn any truth into a weapon before it touched the floor. Ethan noticed again. Answer only me, he told Tomas. Can we access room 6? Tomas nodded once. Vale held up her phone. I will not authorize a child entering any restricted space. Then authorize me, Ethan said. You are grieving. Yes, he replied. I am also the boy's father. The word father did not sound polished when he said it. It sounded unfinished. Vale unlocked room 6 with visible reluctance. The air inside smelled of dust, old felt, and something metallic, like a radiator that had been hot too many winters. Chairs were stacked against one wall. Sheet music curled on a warped stand. A piano sat under a grey cover, its shape bulky and watchful in the weak light. Ava stepped in and stopped. This room looked almost the same as it had the last time she saw Julian. Not exactly. The trash bin had been emptied. The floor had been swept. Someone had tried to erase use from the room, but on the wall beside the radiator, the old vent cover sat crooked by less than an inch. Julian had always hated things that were almost straight. He said adults trusted straight lines too much. Tomas knelt by the vent with a screwdriver from his belt. His hands were steady until he noticed Vale watching him record the moment on her phone. Ethan stepped between them. Put it away. This protects the school, Vale said. It protects you, Ethan said. At last, her face showed strain. The screws came loose one at a time. Tomas removed the cover and angled his flashlight into the dark space beyond. Dust floated through the beam. Ava crouched beside him, but Ethan put a hand out. Not inside, he said. I'm smaller. That is not a reason to use you. The sentence surprised her. So did the way Tomas looked at Ethan after hearing it. Ethan lowered himself awkwardly to one knee, ruining the crease in his black suit. He took the flashlight and peered through the vent. Ava watched his shoulders tense. What do you see? Victor asked from the doorway. Ethan did not answer at first. Then he said, a piano, a chair, a music stand. Ava leaned close to the opening, keeping her hands on the floor. Left of the piano, she said, there should be a metronome, wood case, the front sticks sometimes. Ethan shifted the light. His breath caught. It's there. Ava closed her eyes for half a second. Julian had not imagined the trail. He had built it. Can you reach it? She asked. No. Tomas looked along the wall. The vent bends. There's a clean-out panel in the storage room, but it opens behind the radiator in 7. You'd still need the key. Vale's voice returned, sharper now. Then we are done. We can preserve the room and call appropriate authorities. Victor stepped closer to Ethan. That is the first reasonable thing anyone has said in 10 minutes. Before Ethan could respond, a radio crackled in the hall. A guard's voice came through, low but clear. Mr. Whitmore's car is waiting. The trustees have arrived early. Ethan turned. Victor's expression did not change quickly enough. Trustees? Ethan said. Victor sighed. I was going to tell you after the memorial. The trust committee thought it best to handle administrative continuity while the family was gathered. Administrative continuity, Ethan repeated. Ava did not understand all the words, but she understood Ethan's face. Dad can't sign. Victor lowered his voice. This is exactly the kind of instability the trustees are worried about. You running through service corridors with a janitor's daughter because of a scrap of paper. Ava stood. She has a name, Tomas said. It was quiet, almost too quiet to matter, but it mattered to Ava. Victor looked at Tomas as if he had stepped out of place. Then, from inside room 7, something clicked. Once, twice, a dry wooden tick. The metronome. Ava's skin tightened. Ethan turned back to the vent. No one touched it. Tick, tick, tick. Slow at first, then uneven, like a tired heart trying to remember its job. Vale moved toward the door. This is inappropriate. We need everyone out. But Ava was listening past the ticking. Under it came a faint scrape, then a thin, broken thread of sound. It was a recording, faint and broken. Ethan pressed closer to the vent. The words were distorted by wood and dust, but some came through. If I miss Tuesday, Julian. Ethan went very still, but not frozen. Held together. The recording clicked, skipped, then continued. Don't let Uncle Victor. The papers aren't for school. Victor's hand closed around the doorframe. Vale whispered, that device should have been removed. The sentence was not meant for everyone, but everyone near the vent heard it. Ava looked at Ethan. Ethan looked at Victor. The metronome ticked 3 more times, then jammed on a harsh wooden clack. From the hallway beyond room 7, somewhere deeper in the old wing, came the sound of hurried footsteps moving away. Ethan reached the corridor first. The end of the hall was empty. Only the exit door beside the old recital office was moving, easing back toward its frame with the slow guilt of something that had almost been caught. A red sign on it read, Service lift out of order. Ava knew that sign. It had hung there for 2 years, even though the lift still worked if someone held the inside button down. Tomas knew it too. He looked at the sign, then at Vale. The headmistress did not look back. Ethan pulled the door open. The shaft beyond was dark, but not silent. Somewhere below, metal shivered against metal. Who has access to this lift? He asked. Facilities, Vale said. And administration, Tomas added before fear could stop him. Victor's phone vibrated. No one would have noticed except Ava was watching his hands now. He glanced at the screen, then turned it inward too fast. Ethan saw enough to ask, Who is texting you? My attorney, Victor said, which you should have called before this became reckless. Ava looked through the narrow gap of the service lift. The darkness below smelled like oil, dust, and cold air from outside. Someone had just used it, and whoever it was had been close enough to hear Julian's recording before it played. Ethan did not chase the service lift. His body wanted to run. She saw it in his shoulders, in his hand on the cold metal door. But he did not leave the corridor. He looked at the lock on room 7, the vent between the practice rooms, the metronome ticking dead behind a wall he could not open, and then he turned to the guard. No one leaves this wing. Victor's laugh was quiet. Ethan, no one, Ethan said again. The guard did not look at Vale this time. He reached for his radio. Headmistress Vale straightened. You do not have authority over school security. As Julian's father and one of this school's primary donors, Ethan said, I am formally requesting that this wing be preserved. That is precisely the problem, Victor said. You are acting as a father, not as a rational party. Ethan looked at him. Good. The word was small, but it moved something in Ava. For most of her life, adults with power had used calm as proof. Calm meant believable. Calm meant the poor child was confused, the worker was mistaken, the system had checked itself. Ethan was not calm anymore, and for once, that made him easier to trust. They did not open room 7. Not yet. Vale refused without police present. Victor supported her in the name of evidence preservation. Even Ethan, furious as he was, understood that if he broke the padlock himself, every lawyer in the building would later call the room contaminated. So the investigation moved to the security office. It was 2 floors below the chapel, past a trophy hall where Julian's face smiled from a debate team photograph Ava had never seen before. In the picture, he stood between taller boys, holding a small plaque. He looked proud and uncomfortable, as if winning had trapped him in a place he did not want to stand. Ava slowed. Ethan noticed the photograph too. Was he happy here? He asked. The question sounded like it had escaped him. Ava did not know how to answer without hurting him. He was better after 4 o'clock, she said. Ethan kept walking, but something in his face folded inward. The security office smelled of coffee, warm monitors, and plastic carpet. 6 screens showed the campus. Chapel entrance, front gate, courtyard, east parking lot, nothing from the old music wing. The security director, Mr. Klein, arrived with his tie crooked and his badge flipped backward. He looked at the headmistress before he looked at Ethan. That was happening too often. "I need camera footage from the old music wing," Ethan said. "Last night between 8 and 10. Also Monday after the retreat report came in. And today, 10 minutes before we entered room 6. Klein rubbed his jaw. "That system has been unstable." "Show me unstable." "We had scheduled maintenance." Ava looked at Tomas. Her father's eyes narrowed in the way they did when a pipe made the wrong sound. "Scheduled by who?" Ethan asked. Klein clicked through the system. "Facilities request. Logged by administration." Vale spoke before the screen loaded. The wing had been closed. Camera priority was shifted to the memorial. "Convenient," Ethan said. Victor stepped beside him. "Careful. An accusation without foundation will weaken everything you are trying to prove." "No," Ethan said. "Delay weakens it." The footage opened, then stopped. A black rectangle filled the monitor where the 4th floor corridor should have been. Timestamp. New. Sync. PM. The picture resumed at 9:22. 17 minutes missing. Ava's hands went cold. Julian's first whisper had come through the vent around 9:12. Klein cleared his throat. "That is the maintenance window. Pull the work order," Ethan said. Klein did. A PDF appeared. Ava could not read all of it from where she stood, but she saw the date, the time, and a digital signature at the bottom. "Monsieur Val." The headmistress did not flinch. "Routine approval." Tomas leaned closer despite himself. "That's not our form." Vale turned. "Excuse me?" "Facilities forms have the work location in the top right corner," he said, voice careful. "That one doesn't." Klein zoomed in. Tomas was right. The form looked official enough to fool someone who never used it. But Tomas had spent years reading the ugly paperwork that told him which leak could wait and which broken hinge would be blamed on him if a parent saw it first. Victor folded his arms. "So the form is imperfect. That proves clerical sloppiness, not conspiracy." Ava hated that word. Conspiracy made the truth sound too large for ordinary people to touch. Ethan pointed to the screen. "Print it." Klein hesitated. "Now." The printer started behind them. For a moment, the only sound in the security office was paper sliding into the tray. Then Victor's phone vibrated again. This time Ethan held out his hand. Victor looked at it. "Absolutely not. Who is waiting for me?" "The trustees. Your council. People trying to protect Julian's estate from chaos." "Julian is not an estate." Victor's face sharpened, then smoothed again. "No, he is your son, which is why someone has to make decisions while you are unable to." Ava saw Ethan absorb the words. Unable. Ava understood that kind of silence. It sounded polite, but it had sharp teeth. It was positioning. Before he could answer, Klein clicked to another screen. Service lift logs. Most were boring. Monthly inspection. Janitorial use. Delivery access. Then Ava saw today's date. One entry at 10:41 a.m. Manual override. Administrative credential. No name. Klein frowned. That should identify the card. "Why doesn't it?" Ethan asked. "Could be a damaged reader." Tomas shook his head. "That reader was replaced in winter." Klein looked annoyed now. "With respect, Mr. Morales, you are not security." "No," Tomas said. "I'm the person they call when security breaks the door trying to get in." Ava almost smiled. Almost. Then she saw another manual override. Monday, 9:18 p.m. Her breath caught. "That's during the missing footage," she said. Everyone looked at the screen. Klein did not move. Ethan stepped closer. "Print that too." Vale's phone rang. She silenced it. Too fast. Victor saw Ava notice. He moved slightly, placing his body between her and the headmistress. Ava moved one step to the side. On Vale's screen, before it went dark, she saw only 3 words. "Is it gone?" "Gone." Gone could mean opened, found, or safe. It could mean anything except harmless. Ava did not say it aloud yet. She had learned something from Julian. Sometimes you kept one answer in your pocket until it became useful. Ethan turned to the security director. "I want the metronome." Vale's answer was immediate. "No. It may contain my son's voice. It may contain an old recording made before the accident. It may contain private student material. It may contain nothing admissible because this child has now influenced your interpretation of every sound you hear." Ava felt the blow, but Ethan answered it. She has influenced me to ask questions. Victor's voice lowered. And where does that end? You accuse the school? Your brother? The trustees? You turn Julian's memorial into a spectacle because a lonely girl found a recording she may not understand? Ethan looked at Ava. For one terrible second, she thought Victor had reached him. Then Ethan said, "It ends when I know why my son left a message telling me not to sign." The printer finished. 3 pages rested in the tray. The fake work order, the missing camera window, the manual lift override. Ethan picked them up, but Ava was looking at the monitor again. The service lift log had one more column Klein had not opened all the way. Destination, Ava pointed. Can you make that wider? Klein ignored her. Ethan did not. Do it. Klein dragged the column open. Monday, 9:18 p.m. Manual override. Administrative credential. Destination, Lower West exit. Ava knew that exit. It did not lead to the street. It led to the old maintenance tunnel under the athletic fields. The one students joked was haunted because cold air came up through the grass in winter, and the retreat buses had left from the athletic lot. The maintenance tunnel did not feel haunted. It felt used. That was worse. Ava had been through it twice with her father, both times during winter storms when the athletic building pipes froze and the school did not want parents seeing workers carry tools across the main lawn. The tunnel ran under the practice fields, low and damp, with old brick walls and yellow safety lights that blinked when the wind above ground was strong. Most students only knew the stories. A ghost under the grass, a door that locked itself, a piano playing underground after midnight. Ava had never believed any of them. Now, standing beside Ethan Whitmore at the Lower West exit, she wished ghosts were the worst thing this school could hide. Klein unlocked the door with a master credential. He did it slowly, as if every second might give someone else time to arrive and stop them. Victor stayed close behind Ethan. Vale stayed close behind Klein. Tomas stayed close behind Ava. No one stood alone anymore. The stairwell down smelled of wet stone and old paint. At the bottom, a metal gate blocked the tunnel. A red maintenance tag hung from the chain. Closed for inspection. Tomas reached for it, then stopped. That tag is new, he said. How new? Ethan asked. It wasn't here last Friday. Klein checked the log on his tablet. Inspection request submitted this morning. By who? Ethan asked. Klein's thumb hovered too long. Vale answered. My office. After the service lift concern. Before we found the lift concern, Ava said. Vale looked at her. Ava did not look away. For a moment, the tunnel seemed to breathe cold air up at all of them. Ethan held out his hand for the tablet. Klein hesitated, then passed it over. The request was dated 8:04 a.m., hours before Ava walked into the chapel. Ethan's jaw tightened. Victor leaned in. Or it means the school was already managing an old maintenance issue. You are turning coincidence into narrative. No, Ethan said. My son did that first. He pointed to the chain. Open it. The gate screamed when Klein pulled it back. Ava flinched, not because of the sound, because she remembered Julian flinching when a phone buzzed behind him. They walked in a line, flashlight beams crossing over brick, pipes, and wet floor. About 20 yards in, the tunnel widened near an old equipment alcove. There were marks in the dust there, not footprints exactly. Smears, dragged lines, one small print half-pressed near the wall. Ava crouched before anyone could stop her. The print was narrow, a child's sneaker, maybe. Ethan saw it. Hope moved across his face so quickly it hurt to watch. Julian, he whispered. Victor said nothing. That was when Ava knew the hope was dangerous. Tomas shone his flashlight into the alcove. A folded blanket lay behind a crate of deflated soccer balls. Beside it was an empty water bottle, a torn wrapper from a protein bar, and 3 pencil shavings curled like tiny blue shells. Ava touched one. Blue. The same color as Julian's pencil. Ethan knelt beside her. For one breath, the world seemed to arrange itself into the answer they all wanted. He reached toward the blanket, then stopped himself the way he had stopped himself from breaking the padlock. Photograph it first, he said. Klein lifted his phone with visible irritation. Ethan took his own pictures too, from every angle, then made Tomas point the flashlight while he captured the print, the bottle, the wrapper, the blue shavings. Ava watched him work. This was different from the chapel. He was no longer waiting for someone official to tell him what grief allowed. He was building a record with his own hands. Then Tomas leaned closer to the blanket. His face changed. What? Ava whispered. He shook his head once, warning her not to speak yet. But Ava had already seen it. The blanket was folded too neatly for someone hiding in the dark. Julian had been here. Julian had left signs. Julian might still be somewhere close. Then Klein's radio crackled. Security to base. Police liaison is at the front entrance. Media is asking about a trespassing minor. Victor closed his eyes, almost sadly, and Ava understood that something had shifted against them. By the time they returned to the security office, the school had already built a different story. It was waiting on the main monitor, an internal incident report. Subject: unauthorized access and evidence contamination. Ava saw her name in the first line. Ava Morales, minor child of maintenance employee Tomas Morales, entered restricted areas during memorial services and handled materials connected to the deceased student without authorization. Her stomach dropped. Tomas read over her shoulder. His face did something she had never seen before. It emptied. Ethan turned on Klein. Who wrote this? Klein did not answer. Vale did. The school is obligated to document breaches. You documented a child as a breach. I documented an incident. Victor's voice was gentle. Ethan, this is what I warned you about. Every step she takes makes the evidence harder to use. The notebook, the vent, the metronome, the tunnel, all touched or interpreted by the same girl. She found what your systems missed, Ethan said, or she created a pattern out of things she already had access to. Tomas stepped forward. My daughter didn't create anything. Victor looked at him with pity sharpened into a blade. Mr. Morales, you have keys. You know the tunnel. You knew the vent. You repair forms. You understand how unfortunate this appears. Ava felt the room tilt. There it was, more than doubt, a shape around them. A way to make everything Julian had left become something Ava and her father could have planted. Ethan saw it too, but seeing was not the same as stopping. Klein clicked another file. A scanned worksheet appeared. Same math page. Same problems. Same crooked star. Ava's chest tightened. This was in Julian's archive tutoring folder, Vale said. Dated 2 weeks ago, before the retreat. That's not the same page, Ava said. Victor did not look at her. It appears remarkably similar. It's not. Can you prove that? She opened her mouth. Nothing came. The differences were small, the kind Julian hid on purpose. The pressure of the pencil, the crossed-out name, the wrong fractions, the warmth of the paper in her hands. None of that sounded strong enough against a scan on a school monitor. Vale folded her hands. We are not accusing Ava of malice. Children sometimes seek meaning in tragedy. You are accusing her of forgery, Ethan said. I am saying the school must protect itself. From a 12-year-old? From liability. The word landed like the truth underneath every softer word she had used all morning. Victor's phone rang again. This time he answered. Yes, he said, watching Ethan. We are coming. Ethan did not move. Victor ended the call. The trustees are assembled. Your council is concerned. The continuity papers require your signature before the market opens tomorrow. You can argue about a tunnel later. The words before the market opens made Ethan look up. The continuity packet was not just a family form. If signed, it would let Victor vote Ethan's seat during an emergency trustees session and authorize a temporary asset transfer that would be almost impossible to unwind once trading began. Ava heard it. Signature. Papers. Tomorrow. Ethan turned slowly. What continuity papers? Victor's face showed the smallest mistake. A pause where there should not have been one. Then he recovered. Temporary stewardship. Until you are able to function. A knock came at the security office door. A man in a dark suit entered carrying a leather folder. He did not look at Ava or Tomas. He went straight to Victor. Mr. Whitmore, he said, then corrected himself when Ethan looked at him. Mr. Ethan Whitmore, the amended documents are ready. Ethan took the folder before Victor could. Inside was a signature page. His own name was marked with a yellow tab. Below it, in smaller type, was a line Ava could barely read from where she stood. Acknowledgement of prior juvenile assent. Attached behind it were 3 practice sheets, covered in Julian's full name. Julian Andrew Whitmore. Again and again, but every signature leaned too far right. Ava knew Julian's writing leaned left. For a moment, no one looked at Victor. Everyone looked at the signatures. Julian Andrew Whitmore. Julian Andrew Whitmore. Julian Andrew Whitmore. The name repeated across the practice sheets in neat lines, each version trying to become more official than the last. To most adults in the room, they probably looked like a child rehearsing responsibility. To Ava, they looked like someone pretending to be Julian by copying only the parts that were easy to see. They lean the wrong way, she said. The attorney with the leather folder blinked, as if he had forgotten she could speak. Victor's eyes moved to her. Handwriting varies under stress. So does lying, Ava said. Tomas touched her shoulder, warning and proud at the same time. Ethan took the top sheet closer to the monitor light. Julian's schoolwork leaned left. Sometimes, Victor said. Always, Ava said. Vale folded her arms. This is not a handwriting hearing. No, Ethan replied. It is starting to feel like every hearing at once. The attorney cleared his throat. Mr. Whitmore, the documents are not an admission of anything improper. They are continuity instruments prepared for a family crisis. The juvenile acknowledgement was collected before the incident, as part of estate education. Estate education, Ethan said. Victor stepped in. You insisted Julian understand what he would one day inherit. I asked him to understand responsibility, not to sign away his own voice. The attorney's face tightened. No one is asking him to sign away anything now. Ava heard the missing word. Now. Before she could say it, the security office door opened again. This time, a woman in a navy coat entered with a badge clipped to her belt. She introduced herself as the police liaison assigned to the campus event. A liaison, not a detective or rescue officer. Ava understood the difference by the way everyone relaxed except Ethan. I've been briefed, the woman said. By whom? Ethan asked. She glanced at Vale. School administration. Then you haven't been briefed. Victor inhaled slowly. Ethan. The liaison looked at the papers in Ethan's hand. The security screens, the report with Ava's name on it. Her expression stayed professional. At this stage, we have a possible trespass, possible evidence contamination, and unverified audio from a device no officer has collected. My son's voice is on that device, Ethan said. Possibly, she said. But I can't force entry into a locked schoolroom based on possibly. Ava felt the word hit Ethan harder than Victor's insults had. Possibly was a wall. Soft, polite, legal, the liaison continued. We can secure the area pending review. We can request preservation of footage. But unless there is immediate evidence that a living child is in danger inside that room right now, I cannot treat this as an active rescue. He scraped the floor, Ava said. We heard it. Vale answered gently. Old buildings make sounds. Ava hated how many things adults could make disappear by calling them old. The liaison turned to her. You're Ava. Ava nodded. Your father is here? Tomas stepped forward. Victor did not smile, but something in the room changed for him. Officer, I believe Mr. Morales and his daughter should be protected from further involvement. This has already put them in a difficult position. Protected. Ava knew that word too. Sometimes it meant removed. The liaison looked at Tomas. Sir, administration says your access credentials may have been used in areas now under review. Tomas went pale. My badge was in my locker during the memorial. Can anyone verify that? Ava opened her mouth, then closed it. She had been in the chapel. Her father had been in the side aisle. Neither of them had been near the locker. Victor did not need to accuse loudly. He had built a room where the accusation could stand by itself. Ethan moved before the silence could harden. Mr. Morales and Ava are not leaving my sight, he said. The liaison raised an eyebrow. You don't have custody authority over the minor. No, Ethan said. But I have the right to request that witnesses not be intimidated on my property. Vale's lips tightened. This is school property. Then treat this as a formal request from Julian's father and a major donor. The headmistress had no immediate answer. A phone buzzed on the desk. Klein looked down, then away. Ethan saw it. Put it on speaker. It's the front desk. Speaker. Klein pressed the button. A receptionist's strained voice filled the office. Media is asking whether the girl from maintenance fabricated evidence about Julian Whitmore. There's already a post circulating. Tomas closed his eyes. Ava felt smaller than she had in the chapel. It was because people who had never seen her face were being taught what to think of it. Victor spoke softly. This is why we needed control. No, Ethan said. This is why you wanted it. His phone rang then. Not Victor's. His. Ethan looked at the screen and did not answer. Victor saw the name anyway. Your counsel? Ethan let it ring. You need to take that. I need to find my son. You need to remain legally competent to do that, Victor said. The sentence changed the air. Even the liaison looked at him. Victor lowered his voice, but not enough. The trustees can invoke emergency stewardship if your judgment is compromised during a crisis. I have prevented that so far. Ava saw the trap now. If Ethan followed the evidence, they would call him unstable. If he stopped, Victor won. Ethan looked at the signature sheets again. Ava stepped closer. The letters aren't just leaning wrong. He looked at her. Julian crossed his T's late, she said. After the word was done, he said, stopping in the middle made his hand forget where it was going. The attorney frowned. That is anecdotal. So is grief when you need it to be, Ethan said. Ava pointed to the sheet. These T's are crossed while the letters are being written. You can tell because the lines dig under the next stroke. The liaison leaned in despite herself. Ethan looked at her. Can you request a handwriting review? I can request, she said. Not instantly, Victor exhaled. And while we wait, the market opens, trustees act, and the family bleeds publicly. Ava remembered Vale's phone. Is it gone? She had kept it in her pocket long enough. She got a message, Ava said. Vale's head turned. Who? Ethan asked. Headmistress Vale. In the security office. It said, Is it gone? Vale's face hardened. This is absurd. What was gone? Ethan asked. Nothing. I received dozens of messages during events. Show me. My private phone is not subject to a grieving parent's demand. The liaison straightened. She is correct. Ava's hope dipped. Then Klein, still at the computer, said, There may be a timestamp. Everyone turned to him. He swallowed. Not the message, but the security office camera records screens and incoming call light reflections sometimes. For audit protection. Vale stared at him. Klein looked suddenly tired of being afraid again. Ethan said, Pull it up. Before Klein could move, the power went out. The darkness did not last. Emergency lights snapped on above the security office door, painting everyone in a flat red glow. The monitors stayed black. The printer died mid-breath. Somewhere in the wall, a backup battery began to whine. No one spoke for 2 seconds. Then Ethan turned to Tomas. Can the power be cut from inside the school? Tomas was already moving toward the breaker diagram beside the door. Not all of it. Security has backup. Old wing has a separate panel. Service lift has emergency stop. Ava heard the words before the adults did. Service lift. If someone was in it when the power went out, they might not be able to leave. She grabbed Ethan's sleeve. Julian used taps when he wanted someone to listen. Ethan understood instantly. The liaison did too, or at least understood enough. She took her radio from her belt. I need officers at Lower West Exit and the old music wing. Possible child in a restricted service area. Now. Victor stepped forward. Officer, that is an extraordinary leap. The liaison looked at him. So is a power failure during evidence review. Vale said, This campus is old. Ava almost answered, but Ethan did first. Old buildings make sounds, he said. They do not schedule trustees, forge forms, and cut power. They moved fast. They did not run, because adults still believed running made fear visible. But they moved fast enough that Victor had to lengthen his stride to keep up. The emergency lights turned the halls narrow and unreal. Parents' voices drifted from the chapel above, confused now, no longer polished. At the service lift, the red OUT of order sign swung from the door. Behind it came a sound. 3 taps. Abpause. 1 more. Ava's knees almost gave. Julian, Ethan shouted. For a heartbeat, there was nothing. Then, from somewhere inside the shaft, weak and muffled, came a boy's voice. Dad? The word broke Ethan. He did not cry out for cameras. His face simply opened, as if every locked room inside him had lost its hinges at once. I'm here, he said, both hands on the metal door. I'm here. Tomas was already pulling the maintenance release cover from the wall. I need the crank. Klein, who had followed them pale and sweating, reached into the emergency cabinet and handed it over without being asked. The liaison held her flashlight steady. Ethan worked the crank with Tomas, each turn dragging metal against metal, until the inner gate shifted enough to show a narrow gap. Ava saw Julian first. He was sitting on the floor of the service lift, wrapped in a grey school blanket, one shoe missing, his face colorless under dust and sweat. Beside him lay the wooden metronome from room 7 and a folder bound with a black elastic strap. He was alive. That truth filled the hall so completely that even Victor could not speak over it. Ethan reached through the gap. Julian, can you stand? Julian shook his head. The liaison spoke into her radio for medical assistance, but her eyes had changed. There was no more possibly in them. Tomas widened the gate inch by inch. Ethan knelt and helped his son through as carefully as if Julian were made of paper. When Julian's hands reached his father's shoulders, he did not hug at first. He held on like someone testing whether a door was real. Then he whispered, "Don't sign." Ethan closed his eyes. "I won't." Victor found his voice at last. "This child needs medical attention, not interrogation. Julian flinched at his uncle's voice. Ava saw it. So did the liaison. She stepped between Victor and the boy. "Mr. Whitmore, stay where you are." Victor's face cooled. "I am his uncle, and I am telling you to stay where you are." Julian's fingers tightened around Ethan's sleeve. "He said if I was missing long enough, the papers would move without me." Victor's voice stayed smooth. "Julian has been frightened. He may have misunderstood adult conversations." Ava stepped forward. "Like I misunderstood the notebook." No one stopped her now. She pointed to the folder in the lift. "What's in there?" Ethan picked it up. Inside were photocopies of the same practice signatures, a draft continuity packet, and a printed email with no sender name visible from where Ava stood. At the bottom was a handwritten note. "Use left-leaning samples for comparison. Keep final sheets clean." The attorney in the hall went grey. Victor looked at Vale. That was his mistake. It was only a glance, too small for a movie confession, but enough to point toward the person who had helped make the school obey. The liaison saw it. Ethan saw it. Ava saw it too. Vale backed one step away. "Those are not school documents." Klein spoke from behind her. His voice shook, but he spoke. "The draft packet was printed from the headmaster's office at 7:36 this morning." Vale turned on him. "You don't know that?" "Yes," he said. "I do." Ethan looked down at the metronome in Julian's lap. "Is the recording still inside?" Julian nodded. "I made 2. Where is the other?" Julian looked at Ava. Her heart kicked. "The steam pipe," he whispered. "Behind 7, where we tapped." Victor moved then, only one step toward the stairs. The liaison's hand went to her belt. "Do not." Victor stopped. His calm failed to arrive on time. From the far end of the hall came the sound of more footsteps. Officers, trustees, parents who had followed the outage, people who had come expecting scandal and found a living boy in his father's arms. Ethan stood with Julian against him and the folder in his hand. Then he turned to the trustees gathering in the red emergency light. "You wanted my signature," he said. He held up the forged pages. He did not tear them. Ava thought he might. A part of her wanted him to, because torn paper felt like justice in a way adults could understand. But Ethan had learned something in the last hour. Evidence mattered most when it survived anger. He handed the pages to the liaison instead. "Preserve these," he said, "and preserve every camera, every access log, every message sent from this building today. Here is my answer." By late afternoon, the chapel had become an interview room. The flowers were still there. So was Julian's portrait, but the black ribbon had been removed from the frame and placed on the table beside the evidence bags, where it looked less like mourning and more like a mistake someone had finally stopped protecting. A school board member sat beside the police liaison. 2 trustees sat across from Ethan. A child protective investigator listened with a yellow notebook open on her lap. Victor Whitmore sat at the end of the table, no longer beside Ethan, no longer touching his shoulder when he spoke. That distance mattered. Headmistress Vale was asked about the work order. She said she approved many forms. Klein produced the access record. She said systems could be wrong. Then Tomas identified the facility's template, line by line, and explained what had been changed. No one interrupted him. No one asked whether he belonged in the room. Ava watched her father's hands shake once under the table, then stop. The second metronome recording was recovered from behind the steam pipe. It did not explain everything. It did not need to. It confirmed Julian had feared the signatures, named Victor, and described being moved through the service lift before the memorial. When Ava's turn came, the investigator did not call her confused. She did not call her trespasser. She said, "Ava, tell us what Julian trusted you to notice." So Ava did. Not perfectly. Her voice cracked twice. She forgot one time and had to start again. But every adult in the room waited. When she finished, Ethan stood. He looked first at Julian, wrapped in a hospital blanket beside the paramedic, then at Ava and Tomas. "I believe systems that sounded official," he said. "I did not ask why my son needed to hide the truth in homework. I did not know the people this school trained me not to see." His voice thinned, but he did not stop. "Ava Morales told the truth. Her father protected it. My family owes them more than thanks." Across the table, Victor finally looked down. The liaison asked him to surrender his phone before he could leave. Vale was placed on administrative leave pending board review. Klein's statement was taken as a protected witness report, and for once, the system wrote down the fear it had helped create. 3 weeks later, Whitmore Academy reopened the music wing with half its doors still sealed. That was what healing looked like at first. Healing did not arrive with applause or ribbon-cutting adults. It arrived as yellow tape, fresh locks, and investigators carrying boxes. Parents whispering in parking lots, while pretending not to stare at Eva Morales. When she arrived with her father to collect his final paycheck and a new employment contract, Ethan had insisted be written in plain language. Tomas read every page twice. Then he asked for a pen. Eva thought he would sign quickly, because people like them were supposed to be grateful before the offer disappeared. Instead, her father looked at Ethan across the small conference table. "No unpaid overtime," Tomas said. Ethan nodded. "No unpaid overtime. No blame if I report a safety issue. No blame. And my daughter is not part of any school statement unless she chooses to be." Ethan looked at Ava. Ava looked at the table. The old Ava would have let adults decide what her name meant. Liar, trespasser, brave girl, poor girl, hero. All of them felt too small. "I don't want my picture on anything," she said. "Then it won't be," Ethan said. That was the first promise from him, she believed, without checking for a trap. Julian did not return to school that month. He went home with Ethan, then to appointments, then to quiet rooms where people asked careful questions and did not make him answer all at once. His uncle's name appeared in newspapers, but Ethan stopped leaving the articles where Julian could see them. Headmistress Vale resigned before the board could finish, saying suspended. Victor's attorney said many things. None of them sounded calm anymore. The investigation was not finished. Some files were still missing. Some adults still used careful words when they meant fear. Julian knew that. Ava knew it too. But the story no longer belonged only to the people who had tried to bury it. On the fourth Tuesday after the memorial, Ava found a folded worksheet in the library return bin. For a moment, her chest tightened so hard she almost dropped it. Then she saw the handwriting, still small, still leaning left. At the top, Julian had written, "Only do number 6 if you want to." Ava sat on the floor between the shelves and laughed once into her sleeve. The laugh came because he was alive enough to be annoying. She solved number 6 wrong on purpose and wrote beside it, "Reduce it yourself." The next day, Ethan came to the service hallway carrying 2 paper cups of hot chocolate and looking uncomfortable in a place where no one had taught him how to stand. "He wants to see you," he said. Ava looked at her father. Tomas did not answer for her. That mattered too. Julian was waiting in practice room 6, not 7. The piano was uncovered. The steam pipe clicked softly in the wall. A new metronome sat on the piano, but Julian had turned it backward so he did not have to look at it. He looked thinner, older in the eyes. When a phone buzzed somewhere down the hall, his fingers tightened around the edge of the bench. Ava pretended not to notice until he breathed again. Then she sat beside him and opened the worksheet. "You made number 3 too easy," she said. Julian gave her the first almost smile she had seen since the memorial. "I was recovering. That's not a math excuse." Ethan stood by the door, watching them without interrupting. After a while, Julian looked up at him. "Can we come here after 4 sometimes?" Ethan did not ask why after 4 mattered. He knew now. "Yes," he said, "as long as Ava wants to." Ava tapped the steam pipe with 1 knuckle. 3 taps. "A pause." 1 more. Julian answered with 2 taps. "Reduceit." For the first time, Ethan smiled before he understood, and Ava realized that was all right. Some truths did not need to belong to adults first.